In the 1970s, the Norwegian government was aggressively pursuing deep-sea drilling. They were ambitious, determined to generate massive state revenue by exploiting offshore oil reserves. But what they didn't realize was that this oil business was about to unleash a far greater risk. On a bright morning, a couple named Sophia and Stian were preparing breakfast for their son, Odin. Sophia was a technician for a company that built underwater robots, while Stian worked for a major Norwegian oil drilling company. Alongside her colleague Arthur, Sophia conducted a test of their new submersible robot. After work, they celebrated with a party at Sophia and Stian's home, joined by Stian's coworker, Ronnie. It was a happy moment of camaraderie. The next day at work, Sophia received a call from her boss. A catastrophic accident had occurred at one of the offshore oil rigs. The platform had suddenly collapsed to the seafloor. Her boss ordered Sophia to immediately check for any survivors. Sophia and Arthur rushed to prepare their robot for a deep-sea exploration mission. Before boarding the helicopter, the field manager, William, made them sign a non-disclosure agreement, swearing them to secrecy about state company affairs. Once aboard the designated ship, they prepared to deploy the robot. After finishing on deck, they went to the control room to pilot the vehicle, connected via live feed to William, who was monitoring from headquarters. William sent them images of the fallen drill platform to help navigate their robot. Sophia found it strange that a structure so massive could just sink without warning. They all clung to the hope that someone might have survived in an air pocket. The robot dove deep, finally locating the wreckage on the seabed. Sophia piloted it to open a platform door, only to find the body of a male worker. They continued searching and, to their relief, found one survivor. Just as they were about to signal the evacuation team, a massive gas leak erupted from the drill platform. The ship Sophia was on couldn't escape in time, and a tremendous explosion rocked the vessel. At least 8 crew members died instantly, while Sophia and others sustained minor injuries. Stian visited a traumatized Sophia in the hospital, who was deeply shaken by the event. Meanwhile, William and his team held an emergency meeting. They reviewed a simulation showing how the rig had collapsed in just 2 minutes. They were stunned that a structure built to be so robust could fail so quickly. This wasn't normal subsidence like in previous years. They were facing a much more serious problem. Elsewhere, Arthur rechecked the robot's footage and made a shocking discovery: a massive, gaping hole on the seabed. The next day at work, he immediately told Sophia. Horrified by the finding, Sophia copied the footage and took it to William. She insisted this wasn't a simple gas leak, as the entire area had exploded. That much gas rushing to the surface. Something is very wrong here, she argued. But William, who was already aware of the serious issues with the rig, downplayed her discovery. He reminded her of the confidentiality agreement she had signed and took the copy of the footage from her. William then convened a critical meeting with the company's board, executives, and relevant government officials. He revealed they were dealing with a fissure larger than anything ever seen before. A massive collapse spanning several miles in length, right in the heart of their oil field. One researcher suggested causes like climate change or human activity, pointing out that the company had drilled thousands of seabed wells, draining vast reservoirs of oil and gas. With 350 wells still active, perhaps this is nature's way of punishing human greed, he noted. For the safety of all, William recommended an immediate and total shutdown of all drilling and operations in the area. This was the only way to minimize the catastrophic oil spill that was threatening to poison the entire ocean, affecting countless nations. The next morning, the government scrambled SAR teams to evacuate all personnel from the oil field. Stian, who was on duty at the Lamberg platform, prepared to evacuate with the others before another landslide could occur. Ronnie, the platform manager, was busy coordinating the evacuation, checking off workers one by one. The company began securing all installations but hit a major problem. One platform couldn't be shut down remotely. They contacted the platform manager, Ronnie. At home, Sophia saw news reports about the massive evacuation in the North Sea. Realizing a major industry event was unfolding, she tried to call Stian, but couldn't get through. Ronnie, tasked with manually shutting down the valve, intended to go alone. But Stian stopped him, insisting that he would be the one to go down and close the well. He argued that Ronnie, as the manager, was needed topside to control the evacuation. Stian descended to carry out the dangerous task. When the evacuation vehicle arrived, Ronnie radioed Stian, telling him to get out immediately. But as Stian tried to ascend, the electrical systems began to fail, trapping him below. Elsewhere, Ronnie watched in horror as another distant platform collapsed. Moments later, their own platform began to crumble, forcing Ronnie to evacuate, leaving Stian trapped below. Ronnie and the other workers escaped just as the structure gave way, and he could only watch from a distance, his emotions in turmoil, knowing his friend was still down there. Frantic with worry, Sophia took their son, Odin, to Stian's office to meet a staff member named Barrett. Barrett explained the situation. They couldn't remotely shut down all the wells at the Gulfax platform, and Stian had volunteered to do it manually. Unexpectedly, more than 30 platforms had collapsed faster than predicted. Ronnie, as Stian's supervisor, had reported that Stian wasn't with them during the evacuation. Sophia then confronted William, demanding a rescue mission for Stian. William stated the platform was too dangerous. One of its legs had snapped, and it could capsize and sink at any moment. Sophia insisted, arguing they couldn't just leave him. William patiently countered that sending a crew would be a suicide mission, risking more lives. Sophia and Barrett then checked the platform's CCTV footage. Sophia was devastated by what she saw. However, a colleague pointed out that a hatch was damaged, perhaps from the initial collapse, or maybe Stian had broken it in an attempt to escape. Clutching onto this slim hope, Sophia rushed to Stian's sister, a pilot, and convinced her to fly them to the platform, legally tagging along on another mission. She also enlisted Arthur, asking him to bring a mini-robot. Feeling sorry for her, Arthur agreed to help. They arrived at the Gulfax Alpha platform. With the deck gone, they had to rappel down. They prepared to deploy the mini-robot to search for Stian. Meanwhile, Ronnie heard from Barrett that Sophia had recklessly gone to the platform. He went to speak with Odin, wondering if the boy would ever see his parents again. Fortunately, Arthur was there to operate the mini-robot. Together, they navigated the wreckage and, using a thermal camera, finally located Stian's heat signature. In a separate meeting, company and government officials discussed a new report. A 100,000 square kilometer oil slick was spreading. The seabed shift had ruptured underwater installations. With the wind pushing it toward the coast, the spill would devastate wildlife, nature, the fishing industry, and tourism, spreading to neighboring countries. Recovery would take decades. William proposed a drastic solution: burn the entire spill before it was too late. The explosion would cause local damage, but it was nothing compared to the alternative. Sophia and Arthur descended into the wreckage and found Stian. He was injured but had managed to save himself. Sophia was overcome with emotion at their reunion. After intense discussion with the Prime Minister and the full government, permission was granted to ignite the oil slick. Fighter jets were scrambled for the operation. Back on the surface, as Sophia and the others tried to call Stian's sister for extraction, they were horrified to see the massive oil slick surrounding them. Moments later, the fighter jets roared overhead. Ronnie, hearing from Barrett about the planned burn, rushed to the command center to report that people were still out there. But it was too late. The jets were already on site and executing their orders. Sophia managed to get William on the line, but he was powerless to stop it. The slick had been ignited, and the fire was coming. Sophia asked Stian about the lifeboats. They found one and decided to fill it with water, a desperate plan to sink it beneath the advancing fire. They stared at the wall of flame racing toward them. Working against time, they flooded the lifeboat and got inside. Sophia released the mechanism, but nothing happened. Stian urged her to try again, but it was useless. Arthur realized he'd forgotten to pull one of the release levers upstairs. The lifeboat was still locked in place. Arthur made the split-second decision to get out and manually release it. The consequence was dire. The person who pulled the final release lever wouldn't have time to get back in. With the fire almost upon them, Arthur made the ultimate sacrifice, pulling the lever and saving Sophia and Stian as the lifeboat plunged into the water. Sophia and Stian screamed for him, but it was too late. A weakened Stian could only watch as Sophia struggled to control the lifeboat and resurface. They contacted Ronnie, telling him they were alive in a lifeboat outside the drilling rig. Hearing their son Odin's voice over the phone overwhelmed them with emotion. Ronnie immediately dispatched a SAR team to their location. They were finally reunited with Odin, but their joy was shadowed by the profound grief of Arthur's sacrifice. Sophia had lost a dear friend and invaluable colleague. It took a year for the smoke from the burn to fully clear. The company had amassed billions in the bank, but nature had finally said, "Enough." They had thought of themselves as an oil nation, but they were, and always had been, a maritime nation.